Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to No Timeouts, a football show coming at you from the Score Studio. My name is Jonah Birenbaum. That is Tyler MacKillop. That is Dan Wilkins. That is Zak McDonald. You know them. You love them. Gentlemen.
Playoff time.
Playoff time. The 2025 regular season is officially history. I love what I'm hearing over there. The regular season was great. We laughed, we cried, we saw 44-year-old Phillip Rivers start 3 games randomly, and now...
Turns out that was a mistake, by the way.
Who could have seen that coming?
Riley Leonard beast mode.
It's playoff season, gents. The 14-team playoff pool is set. The wild card round is nigh. The Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks will have the privilege of not playing in it. They both receive first-round byes by virtue of finishing in first place in their respective conferences. So let's dive right into the big week ahead. We got 6 games on tap. We're going to touch on them all, but let's start with what may be the most intriguing wildcard matchup. The 7th-seeded 9-7 Packers will head to Chicago.
9-7-1. Thank you very much.
There you go. Excuse me. Who could forget? You know,
Could be 9-8 and tied with the Vikings.
Cowboys fans want us to put some respect on that tie. The 7th-seeded Packers will head to Chicago to take on the 2nd-seeded Bears, their NFC North rival, who finished the season at 11-6. Amazingly, this marks just the 3rd ever playoff matchup between these two longtime rivals. Pretty shocking. Wilk, what are you expecting in this one? What are the keys to this intra-divisional wildcard showdown?
Yeah, this is the fun one. Like you said, 3rd matchup of the season of one of the best rivalries in the entire sport. You're obviously going to hear a lot about the quarterback matchup between Jordan Love and Caleb Williams, 2 of the brightest young stars in the sport. Makes sense. But for me, I don't care about all that. This is all about the running game, and more specifically, a question of whether the Packers defense can hold up against the Bears. And personally, I'm not too optimistic about that. After a pretty slow start to the season in Chicago, I guess we probably shouldn't be surprised that it didn't take long for Ben Johnson to build one of the most consistent run games in the entire league. I would argue it ended up being the most consistent run game in the entire league. Chicago ended up finishing as a top 3 unit in rush success rate, but from week 5 on, they were actually number 1 in the entire league. On the other side of the ball, the Packers defense, it's kind of been the opposite story. They were just fine coming out of the gate, but slowly as the season went on, they were tumbling down the league leaderboard in terms of rush success rate on defense. And obviously that Micah Parsons injury in week 15 has really put that defense in a bad spot. And I can't stop thinking about how badly they got gashed in the run game in that game against the Ravens a few weeks ago. Baltimore being without Lamar Jackson was always going to make that a Derrick Henry game. The Packers knew this, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. I believe it was 216 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I don't know what the answer is here for the Packers, because I worry that their defense has just fallen off a cliff and there's no way to bounce back. Obviously, the Bears do not have Derrick Henry, but Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift have quietly been a very nice thunder and lightning tandem. And crucially, the difference here is that the run blocking in Chicago is much better than it is in Baltimore. So I think that Jordan Love can make this one interesting against a Bears defense that is way too reliant on turnovers. But I think that the Bears run game controls this one enough to advance to the divisional round.
Yeah, I think it's so shocking before going into the year and coming to this point in the season that the Packers run game looks like this. Like the way that the addition of Christian Watson coming back and being at full health has been massive. Because this is the best. Yeah, on offense.
Yeah.
Like offensively, this team is still extremely explosive. Jaden Reed coming back definitely helps them as well. I think if they had their full allotment of pass catchers when we're talking about Tucker Kraft, this would be an offense that'd be maybe the best in the NFL right now. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, the Bears defense is very susceptible. Like, they're not going to pressure you throwing the football. You probably don't have a problem throwing the ball 40, 50 times in this game if the run game isn't working, because ultimately the Packers can make plays through the air, and the Bears, unless they're forcing turnovers, aren't going to do much to stop them. Yeah. The other thing I can't get over is just the way the Bears showed up last week in a game that they ultimately didn't need but thought they needed. The offense has been pretty stale. They haven't had DJ Moore, Roma Dunze. They've been leaning a lot on Colson Loveland and Luther Burden the last few weeks. I would feel confident with the run game getting going too, especially with now Devontae Wyatt out for Green Bay as well. But the Packers offense, with LaFleur having some time to prep here, I think they're ultimately have a very good chance of beating this game. I mean, what is this game? Like a pick 'em, right? It's like -1.5.
It's really close.
Well,
-1.5.
Both the games they played this season were incredibly close, and were basically coming down to one of the quarterbacks having to make huge plays at the end of the game,
yeah.
Which I think we obviously could see that happening again. I really love Caleb Williams, honestly, in that spot to, especially when you have this running game to lean on for so long, and then it comes down to these last-minute situations where they need him to do something incredible. And I'm not sure there's somebody who, other than Josh Allen, who has more propensity to do something incredible at the end of the game. And the one thing that you're talking about of the run game, what I really like about their run game is Ben Johnson is scheming their run game to be so good. Like, yes, DeAndre Swift and Monungai are talented, but they're playing like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So the fact that Ben Johnson gets the opportunity against a porous Green Bay Packers rush defense to actually figure out what he wants to do schematically to make that work gives them that huge advantage in the run game.
I keep coming back to what you just said about the quarterbacks doing something special in the dying moments. That's exactly what Caleb Williams did to the Green Bay Packers in Week 16 when they didn't have Micah Parsons. The Packers didn't. He threw a 46-yard bomb to DJ Moore to win the game in overtime. And over the course of that game, he wasn't sacked once. Like, that feels like it was a pretty scary kind of bit of looking into the future maybe for the Packers, but we'll see. It's going to be go ahead.
Sorry, to the Packers' credit though, like I think the Packers have a very good chance of winning this game as well. Jordan Love, when his back is against the wall, is actually the best version of Jordan Love. He's a rare quarterback like that. When he's forced to be aggressive, he's actually a much better player than he is when they're playing kind of keep away ball and being very conservative. So Jordan Love has just the same amount of opportunity to do that. And that's why this is the game we're leading off with, because this is a very exciting football game.
Yeah, we've seen Jordan Love get into rhythm at times. And again, I think that this is an opportunity for their offense to put up a lot of points. And quite frankly, I mean, Caleb has been clutch. We've seen it all year. Like, this team has been playing right on the margin, winning on the margins all season. And ultimately, if this type of situation comes up where the offense isn't moving the ball for 60 minutes of this game, I do think the Packers could potentially build a lead and then take the Bears away from being able to run the football so consistently and might be forced to throw the ball a little bit more. I think I'd take the Packers in this game because, again, I do like LaFleur being able to move the ball offensively. Yes, there's some defensive issues that they could have, ultimately the run game, but the Bears offense has not been consistent in the latter part of the season either.
Yeah, no, fair enough. All right, let's stick in the NFC. We have the 6th-seeded 12-5 49ers heading to Philadelphia to take on the 3rd-seeded 11-6 Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champions. T, what are the keys to this one?
I think this comes down to one team is terrific when it comes to rushing the passer, and the other has no juice, and that's just not sustainable this time of year. You look at San Francisco, without blitzing, they're the worst pass rush in the entire NFL, 3.2% sack rate when rushing 4 or less, whereas the Eagles, they're kind of loaded with talent there. If Jalen Phillips is back and healthy, which I expect him to, he was actually ringing the bell at the 76ers game the other night, so I would think if you're out in the town, you're going to be healthy enough to play this week. But they're 8th in sack rate this season at 7.3%. The Niners, I'm just extremely skeptical as to whether or not they can take advantage of where the Eagles' weakness is defensively. Like, if you're going to beat this Eagles team, you got to do what the Bears were doing against them a few weeks ago, and that's running the football at a really high level. And a lot of people...
Honestly, that was without Jalen Carter too, right?
Yeah.
Like, that becomes so much more difficult now.
Oh, 100%, yeah. The thing, I feel like a lot of people like to rag on, I'm sure you guys have seen this, rag on PFF grades. And I saw one where people are ragging on the fact that Christian McCaffrey was like the 15th ranked running back in the league this year. I mean, I would think that that's probably exactly where I would put him.
Well, he's not a good. He's still electric in the passing game, but he's not as good.
They have not run the ball well, and
but that's what I'm saying. He's not a good running out of the backfield as he was before. He's still an extremely valuable player. And I think that's why people get upset, because what he does in the passing game makes a big difference. And the fact that Kyle Shanahan hasn't found some kind of like Jeff Wilson Jr., Raheem Mostert guy off the scrap heap to like carve up defenses is very surprising.
So the Eagles are like, with Fangio, it's very simple. They have one of the highest light box rates in the entire league. Like 61% of plays, they have 6 or less guys in the box. They are going to play a lot of 2 high. They've given up, I think they're 23rd in EPA this season against the run. So they're going to leave those light boxes and dare you to run. And McCaffrey this year has actually been a horrible runner against the light box. He's 41st in yards per carry, 4.6 yards per carry against the light box. Usually you're like, this is a guy who breaks tackles and makes plays. He's 46th in broken tackle rate. Like, he doesn't make opposing defenses pay for a light box. And if McCaffrey's not running it efficiently and you're asking Purdy to throw the ball 30-plus times against this defense, I've got a lot of concerns. As good as Purdy's been, like Purdy's been playing at an MVP level the latter half of the season.
That game that he played against the Bears was crazy.
Yeah, but I just
also,
don't
can
know.
we say T-Mac is the number one 49ers hater that
I am.
exists
No,
on
I
the
am.
planet
I've been saying
right
it
now.
all. Yeah, I've been saying it the entire second half of the year.
We cannot go past this segment
true.
without addressing the fact that T-Mac does not believe in the 49ers. He does. I'm hearing Super Bowl talk from some people about them, and you are just completely out on this team.
100%.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people excited about the Niners, and I think all year long I had them like sitting just outside the top 10. Eventually they had to crack the top 10 because I had no choice after they won that game against the Bears.
Yeah, on the verge of being the 1 seed.
Yeah, so but the reality is like this team is extremely flawed, and I think that this is a dream matchup for the Eagles
100%, I agree.
could really beat them up on offense. The Eagles defense could beat up the 49ers offense in the same way that we saw the Seahawks do last week.
Yeah.
And for an Eagles offense that hasn't been able to do anything all year, well, it's sure nice to start the playoffs against a 49ers defense that can't take the ball away from anyone.
We're
So-
going to learn a ton about the Eagles in this game. Like,
Yeah.
But both teams.
Of both teams,
Yeah.
for sure. I think the 49ers, like Brock Purdy is going to play good. T-Mac is right. They can't rush the passer, which is a big problem. I still think Sal schemes the defense up enough that he kind of can.
Oh, he's been
could-
everything for this defense. 'Cause
Exactly.
personnel-wise, they don't have it.
But for the Eagles, they're so scattered and disoriented throughout the regular season. But you always have it in the back of your head that this is a flip the switch team.
Yeah.
And it might be time when the playoffs come, when they're motivated in this way, with all of the tension that they have on the team. If they come out and have a dominant performance, they'll be a Super Bowl type team for sure.
Yeah, Lane Johnson hasn't played since like mid-November. It's been 6-7 games that he's going to be back. They already said that, and I think this is a chance for the run game. They're still a run-first offense. I think it's a chance for the run game to get going because San Fran hasn't tackled well either all year. And it's like you said, this team is given. We talked about this right at the beginning of the year. This defense has given them 18 weeks to figure it out, and maybe with another week off for all the starters, maybe they find something, and you might see people be completely changing their tune on Philly and being like, okay, they can get back to the Super Bowl if they show some life offensively. But ultimately, it is the Niners. Like if you show life against the Niners offense, it doesn't mean I think everything's fixed at the same time.
Yep, fair enough. All right, let's move on, gents, to our final NFC wildcard matchup. I know football fans everywhere are shaking with anticipation over this one. The 5th-seeded 12-5 Rams are heading to Carolina to take on the 4th-seeded 8-9 NFC South champion
Let's
Panthers.
go.
Now the only franchise in NFL history, I should point out, to make it to the playoffs with a losing record twice. Zach, what are the keys to this barn burner?
Well, we had the opportunity to draft which game we wanted to cover in our production meeting for this, and this was my first pick. I wanted to do the Rams and the Panthers. You guys know I have been hot on the Panthers all season. I came here with a prediction from the future that they were going to make the playoffs, and there was no more Panthers way to make the playoffs than to lose the biggest game of the year and sneak in on a Falcons win. I just love everything about this team. Not necessarily how they play football, but everything else about them. It's like, sometimes you're like, football talk can get so serious. We can get so in our heads about stuff. Sometimes things are just fun, and the Panthers making the playoffs is just something that's really fun. And you want to talk about the keys of this game. Here's a stat for you. The Carolina Panthers have the 4th worst point differential in the history of the NFL for a team that made the playoffs. You want to know the other
Impressive.
3 teams that had it over them?
Yeah. Who we got?
So do I, and I cannot see the screen anymore. Jonah, can you tell me the
Absolutely.
3 teams that made it over them?
Yeah, we got the 2004 Rams.
Yep.
We got the 2011 Denver Broncos.
Yep.
And then we have the 2010 Seattle Seahawks with the worst ever point differential from a playoff team at -97.
And you want to know something that's in common with those 3 teams, Jonah?
They didn't win the Super Bowl.
All 3 of them won their first wild card game.
Wow.
And the Panthers are now in that list. And in those games, we have the Tim Tebow
Beating the Steelers.
beating the
That's
Steelers
right.
with that
Yeah.
pass to Demaryius Thomas. And we have the Marshawn Lynch Beastquake
Beastquake,
yeah.
against
Yes.
the New Orleans Saints, where they went and won that game. So this Panthers team is a reminder that, hey, the playoffs can be fun. Football can still be fun. And yes, of course, like, am I going to sit here and do analysis line by line? And
Come on, give me something.
An
man.
analysis
Give me
isn't
something.
going to help your argument.
Well, what I will give you is that the Panthers do have some really exciting players. Bryce Young, obviously we understand the flaws, but he does play some really good games. T-Mac, Teteroa McMillan, not our T-Mac, a different T-Mac, is one of the brightest young receivers in the game. Jalen Coker, whatever his highest, longest reception odds are go
Take
hit
the
that
over.
one. Go hit that one.
So what you're saying is the only way to make this great is if we bet on it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's true with almost all games.
A real company man.
Yeah.
So you're taking the Panthers.
We got Derek Brown on the defensive line making some big plays. I'm taking the Panthers. Give me the Panthers. I don't even care about the spread. Give me money line. They're going to be the 14.
If the Panthers are
Jeez.
going to stand a chance in this game, we need weeks 5 to 9 Rico Dowdle, where he ran for I think it was the Dolphins. He ran for 180 on. We need that guy to come back because he hasn't been back since week 9.
Or we need the week 13 Carolina Panthers who beat the LA
beat the Rams.
Rams.
Yeah,
they beat them.
But ever since that win, it feels like that win shocked them back into recognizing who they are. Because since then, they went 1-3. They average 16 points a game, and they have a negative turnover differential. It's almost like they realized with that win, we're not about this life.
Yeah.
We don't want this smoke.
That was Bryce Young's best game of maybe his career, I would say. And Matt Stafford, I think, turned the ball over in the red zone at least twice. One fumble, one interception. There's a lot of things that have to go right for the Panthers. Again, they get this game at home. That's good for them. 10-point dog at home.
That's tough. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's truly hard to do.
Another reminder that the whole home playoff game, just because you win a division, can get a little weird sometimes.
Yeah, get it weird. I don't have a problem with it, but it is weird.
It's
it
weird
can get
that they
weird in this
still let
situation.
NFC South teams into the playoffs. In my mind, they should three teams finishing at 9.
There
What a
should just be like a
disgrace.
little separate NFC South tournament that happens at the end of the year. and
Yeah,
you
the
just, like-
consolation loser tournament.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm waiting for Dan to just come on.
Yeah,
just-
Dan,
Dan,
just
I
come
know.
on, give
Let's
us
hear
something.
Let's hear it,
this
Dan.
game.
Let's hear it.
This isn't the game. The Rams are going to win by 4 scores. What are we doing? Let's move on.
There you go. Let's move on. Great idea.
That
Into
was
the AFC
out of
we
all
go.
that, I bloviate for 20 minutes, and Dan is the only one with the right
we'll
analysis.
analyze-
The system
There,
works,
yeah.
okay? We know the formula is effective. Moving in to the AFC, let's start with what I believe to be the most compelling wildcard matchup in that conference. The 6th-seeded 12-5 Buffalo Bills. They're heading down to Jacksonville to take on the 3rd-seeded 13-4 Jaguars. T, what are the keys to this one?
Yeah, let's get back into football instead of just
100%. I've got
make believe
vibes.
theatrics.
Yeah, I've got goosebumps thinking about Bills Jaguars.
I'm excited about this game. I think on the surface, to me, when you look at the matchup between these two run games, we're polar opposites here in terms of defensively. The Bills are one of the worst run defenses. They are the worst run defense in the entire league. They're 32nd in yards per carry. Believe they're dead last in EPA per play too. And the Jags have had answers defensively. Their run defense is very good, top 5 in both EPA and yards per carry. I think both of these teams do operate as run-first offenses. Now, the Jags' running game has really struggled the second half of the year. I was so impressed. We talked about it so much at the start of the season, and then I went back and looked at the numbers in the second half. Since week 10, they've been one of the worst rushing attacks in the entire league. But the thing is when you play the Bills, I don't think it really matters how well you run the ball against everybody else. We've seen teams like the Houston Texans be able to run the ball in this Bills defense. So for Liam Cohen, I think the identity of this team is run first. This puts them in an excellent situation to be able to run the ball a lot and efficiently. And they've had answers defensively against the run. They've been very, very good. Honestly, they have been for years because I think they have a very good group up front to be able to do so. My question is, I also think when it comes to stopping the run is one thing, but not being able to rush the passer at all, I think is a problem. Houston was great in that game with the Bills. They had, 6-7 sacks in that game. They caused a lot of issues. The Jags, though, they don't have that pass rush. They've been one of the worst pass rushes in the league this year. So I think this is a game with a lot of points, but I do like the Jaguars to win this game because I think offensively they're going to be able to do whatever they want, whereas the Jags have proven against anybody defensively, they're a top-tier unit. It's just the Josh Allen effect is real, I guess, in this particular game when you don't have the type of pass rush that some of these other opponents we've seen be able to have against Buffalo.
My question is, if Buffalo finds a way to contain a rushing attack that ultimately finished 19th in the league in
they
EPA per
struggled.
rush and 20th in total rushing yards, and ultimately the game is in Trevor Lawrence's hands, can Jacksonville still beat Buffalo?
I would really have no doubt about that, honestly. I think that Trev's been playing the best football of his career over the last, what is it now? 6, 7, 8 weeks?
It's a big sample size at this point.
Yeah, I'm back in on him now, and I think that Liam Cohen's been doing unbelievable work with him in that passing game. And obviously, it's been huge with the run game falling off a little bit lately, but the Jacoby Myers trade has really helped that the passing game take off ever since the trade deadline. So
Parker Washington balling out.
Yeah, I obviously love Josh Allen, but if you ask me which passing game I would trust more, I would still take the Jags passing game because they've been that good recently. So, yeah, I'm with T. I'm taking the Jags in this game.
I think one thing, T, you're talking about their running game towards the end of the season. One thing I do want to point out is a big factor of their success has been Trevor Lawrence
in the
reinstituting the run back into his game. Like, I think a big reason why he seemed like such a star is he's just started running the ball again, which is something that he did really well at Clemson, something that he's always been able to do really well and needs to be a consistent part of his game in this game as well. When you can, a big differentiator between good and great teams is, can your quarterback sneak a 3rd and 10 out every once in a while, just on the ground, and he can do that. However, there's just a part of me that when I'm thinking about the Super Bowl at the end of the year, I'm having a hard time not thinking about the Buffalo Bills being in that Super Bowl game. And I know, again, we're back to the thing that I went to with the Panthers where it logically doesn't make sense. They have so many flaws on the team, but they have Superman at quarterback. And as good as Trevor Lawrence is, he's not holding a candle to Josh Allen. Nobody's holding a candle to Josh Allen. What he can do in big games and in big moments is unparalleled by any other player in the league. As good as Myles Garrett is, Josh Allen is still right there as best individual football player in the NFL. And I don't think any of these teams are scaring me as much as some of the teams you look at in the NFC, like the Rams and the Seahawks, and how good they are on both sides of the ball. So I think in a wonky AFC, the Buffalo Bills would still be a team that I can picture in the Super Bowl.
I just keep coming back to the fact that this is the worst Bills team that they've had since Josh Allen became Josh Allen.
But the AFC landscape is also worse. I feel like the rest of the league has just gotten worse.
That's kind of what I mean, and I know it seems like a tropey thing to bring up, like, oh, no Lamar, no Joe Burrow, no Patrick Mahomes, but there is something to that, and it's simplistic to boil football down to quarterback is the thing that matters and nothing else matters. But I don't agree with that for the most part, but with Josh Allen, that is a big difference.
Yeah. And when the Bills beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl, there are going to be dozens of people watching. Dozens of people. Okay, on Sunday night, 7th-seeded 11-6 Chargers will head to Foxborough to tango with the 2nd-seeded 14-3 Patriots, a 14-win team 1 year after finishing 4-13. Absolutely remarkable turnaround from the Pats. Wilk, what are the keys to this matchup?
T-Mac, this one's for you, buddy. I mean, we're all well aware of the issues with the Chargers and why it can be difficult to buy in on this team. Justin Herbert is obviously great, but he's been taking an absolute beating behind a truly decimated offensive line. I think we have it up on the screen there, or we will in a second, but it's going to be, they've given up 138 quarterback hits so far this year. That is obviously last in the league. And I think it goes without saying, having talked about a bunch of these teams all year, that there are a couple matchups when you look at the road through the AFC playoffs that could really expose that fatal flaw. I don't think this is one of them. I think that the Patriots, for all the progress they've made this year, which has been spectacular, the pass rush is one of those areas that is still a work in progress. They finished with 86 quarterback hits, which was tied for 21st. They finished with 35 sacks, which was tied for 22nd. It's just not a particularly strong area of the game for this team. And if the Patriots aren't able to take advantage of this clear weakness for the Chargers, I think it sets the stage for Justin Herbert to really break through for one of those signature playoff performances that we've been waiting for so long now. And while I'm not one of those people that is going to be screaming and yelling about how the Patriots are frauds and they've benefited from a soft schedule all year, I do think that Jesse Minter's defense challenges Drake May in ways that other opponents haven't been able to do so far this season. I mean, just go back to what we saw this past week. The Chargers were sitting their starters, and they still held the Broncos without a single offensive touchdown. That tells you everything you need to know about why this guy is going to be one of, or maybe the premier coaching candidate on the market this offseason, and it's why T-Mac would just as soon fire Jim Harbaugh to keep him. But yeah, all of that is to say, I think I'm taking the Chargers.
Wow. Your rebuttal?
Yeah, when he's talking, I was choking up. I mean, I feel the same way. I made a video on the Score socials of the best and worst opponent for every single playoff team, and the Pats were the best opponent for the Chargers to play. Now, I'm sure Patriots fans feel really good about playing the Chargers too, because they probably don't want to play the Bills or the Jaguars. Both these teams, I think, feel good about playing each other. But yeah, this is perfect for the Chargers offensively because they have to avoid a premier pass rush. And then defensively, for Minter's defense, so good defending the pass and so good in the red zone, like just constantly. And the Patriots, like, say what you will about Trevion Henderson or Ramondre Stevenson, I don't think this is a very talented backfield.
No.
Like, I don't think that they are going to make the Chargers pay for probably what is their biggest weakness defensively. I'm very excited about them in this matchup. I think they have a very good chance to win this game. And man, boy, do I ever need Herbert to pick up that first playoff win.
No,
I would just like to see
T-Mac
one.
just like posted just like a dreamy photo of Justin Herbert on his Instagram earlier this morning. It's like that's the mode that
We're
he's
week 10.
in.
Yeah.
Like he needs this.
You're
in
locked
his
in
soul.
already.
I will say the counterpoint to my entire argument is that the Chargers' offensive line is bad enough that this could be the game
we saw
where
the Jags just
Exactly, like-
absolutely demolish them.
And like when you look at who the Patriots have up front and how they've been playing, like for the most part, like Harold Landry and Caleb Von Chasen and
Milton Williams is going to be back.
Milton Williams and Christian Barrymore, like that's a good group, but it just hasn't produced the kind of disruption in the backfield that we've been expecting, or for the most part, or at least reflecting how we see those players who have played so far. So I don't know. I'm just going with the Chargers. I think that there's a chance that I get proven wrong, and the Chargers' offensive line is just so bad that it just elevates the Patriots in a way we haven't seen so far. But you know me, I've been a Herbert truther forever now. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the game, and I think this is the time where we finally see it in the playoffs, and people are willing to admit it.
So
I'm going with the Patriots for the record.
Yeah.
Like, let's stop playing around here. Like I know all this Charger stuff is nice, but
Go ahead. Well, paint me the picture. Like, I think what Dan said is right. Like, we saw the Jaguars, who didn't have any pass rush all year, but they did have talent. Like, we're talking about the Patriots with like Josh Hines, Allen, Trayvon Walker, and they demolished them. If Jamari Salyer, it's so crazy talking about a guy like this being so important, but he's missed the last couple weeks. He's been playing left tackle. Like, he was playing guard early, like he was the backup at guard early in the year, and they kicked him out to tackle, which is what he played in college at Georgia, and he's been way, way better. And they haven't had him the last 2 weeks, and it's been incredibly ugly. So hopefully he plays. That would be something to keep an eye on in this game. That'll be a major key for them offensively, is if he plays. Because again, the Chargers can't run the ball either. Like, this is going to be Herbert for
when you
30,
talk
40
about these
dropbacks.
historic numbers of Herbert getting hit and getting sacked and getting all of this stuff, it's not because they're only playing good defenses. Everybody's doing
Right,
it to them,
correct.
right? So
Absolutely.
it's like, I think when you have Mike Vrabel as your head coach, he's going to figure out a way to get to the quarterback, and he's going to hurt Justin Herbert's ability to be as good as he is. And on the second half, it's like, hey, Jesse Minter's great. You know, Chargers defense is like all well and good. It's not the Seahawks. It's not the Texans. It's not even the Rams. It's like Drake May has been arguably the best quarterback in the NFL this year, and he is still going to have the ability to carve up this this defense.
Whoa! Carve up. How many quarterbacks have carved up this defense?
How many
all season?
how many quarterbacks play like Drake May have played this year? And I
Against
know
the
that it's like,
Jets and the Dolphins and the.
It's true. Look,
But
on one hand, the Patriots only have one win this year against a winning team, and on the other hand, the Chargers to me are a very similar team that they were a year ago when they also finished 11-6, when they had a very similar performance and
Their worst-
statistical
their worst
profile.
team.
Their worst team now,
Yeah.
and they got stomped in the first round of the playoffs last year by Houston. Would you be surprised to see them get blown out by the Patriots?
I would be absolutely shocked. They
Shocked.
got blown out by the Patriots.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd be absolutely shocked.
Haven't
the
you been a Chargers
Patriots
fan your whole life? You could not be shocked by
shocked at
anything.
this
blind belief in your team is why we live. Is what we
Yeah,
live
fair.
for.
It's true.
what
If
we
you
live
don't
for.
have
Yeah.
hope, you
Unless
got
you're me.
nothing, right?
I would be shocked. Yeah, because I don't think the Patriots defense is anywhere near that level of Houston's was last year.
Okay. Let's move on. Last but not least, gents, on Monday night, we got the 5th-seeded 12-5 Texans heading to Pittsburgh to take on the 4th-seeded 10-7 Steelers, who snuck into the playoffs with a dramatic Week 18 win that came on a last-second missed field goal by Ravens rookie kicker Tyler Loop. Zach, what's the key to this one?
what is the key to this one? I am much more confident in the Texans beating the Steelers than I am in the Rams beating the Panthers. I think that there's a much bigger gap between the Texans and the Steelers than there is between the Rams and the Panthers.
Interesting.
Whoa!
That's how it's partly how low I am on the Steelers, partly how high I am on the Texans. I think the Texans are absolutely excellent right now. Their defense is just so spectacular. And obviously the big point of this entire game that everybody's going to bring up is Aaron Rodgers is going against Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, and that's a game over, baby. There's nothing he can do. He can't move. The Steelers, since 2020, have had 4 wild card games. They've lost all 4 of those wild card games. This is what they do. They lose in this spot. The Texans, this is a warm-up game for them. They are just going to absolutely dominate the Steelers.
The one thing I have to say, though, is in those games that we've got for everybody there, they're not going to give up that many points in those that they did in those 5 games. Like, this is a game where 14, 17 points for the Steelers could potentially win this game. Because if you talk about what the weakness is, I think the Texans are like, yeah, this is our best possible opponent. The old 40-year-old quarterback with our elite pass rushers. This game could be over before it even starts. But at the same time, you ask the Steelers who they'd want to play, and they'd probably say, well, I'd love to play a team whose offense is about as bad as ours. And our defensive line can take advantage of how bad their offensive line is.
I think that C.J. Stroud, since he came back from injury, in each and every week he seems to be like improving a little bit more. And you can still find a lot of interesting talent on the Texans. They still have Nico Collins, who, if you watch the games, like Nico Collins is still making those Nico Collins plays. And obviously, yes, like it actually drives me crazy that the Texans don't have better running backs, because if they had a great running back, I really would feel confident about them. But they could piece it together with Woody Marks and I don't know.
Jordan.
Is Nick Chubb even alive anymore?
Nick Chubb's moving down the depth chart.
I think he's I think he might be just like you know what I mean, embalmed somewhere. But there's no chance. The Texans are going to absolutely wallop.
What do you
Steelers.
think, Jonah?
I thought that the Ravens would walk away with an easy victory in Week 18, and the Steelers looked really solid. They looked really solid. I was really impressed with Aaron
Rodgers. The Ravens are
Rodgers.
not that good.
Either.
The Ravens are not that good.
Go ahead.
I mean, we're going to talk about the Ravens in the next segment.
Yeah.
But I didn't come away from that game being like, man, the Steelers are better than I thought. It was more so like, man, the Ravens really let me down again, because this should have been a win.
But again, no DK, and Aaron looked. If this team gets
making plays, he's
games,
making plays.
Yeah, Rodgers made a couple plays downfield where you're like, okay, like he can still sling it.
He
Like,
still got it.
So
since Week 11, by the way, 6-0 touchdown to interception ratio for Aaron Rodgers.
So
Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers completely cheated because they used God to win that game.
That's true.
And
I
don't know if you saw this. They had the priest spraying holy water on the end zone that the Ravens ended up missing the kick in on the other side. So they're going to be at home again. My gosh, the whole place is going to be covered in holy water.
Yeah.
This is
Texans need to bring a rabbi.
Yeah. I feel like I'm opposite of a lot of like what you typically expect. I kind of think the Steelers win this game.
Wow.
Dan, where are you at with this one?
Texans.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this game's gonna be so ugly.
But I will say, like, one thing I've been writing about consistently for the last couple weeks is, like, every time I say the Steelers are done and they're awful and they're obviously going to get crushed by the next competent team they play, they do something where they hang around, and then the defense, maybe TJ Watt makes a big play and just swings the game right. I do think that T is right in that this could be a close, low-scoring game, and then really you're just one TJ Watt strip sack away
or crazy
from,
interception away.
Yeah, so like I don't know, I could see it, but I'm still going with the Texans.
But as much as you say that, you would say it more for the other side. The Texans' defense is like bordering on it. Like they deserve a nickname. Like that's the kind of defense that they have.
I agree for sure. I just think that like the path here is the Steelers punt 12 times and score once on offense and once on defense. And you're like, hey, you've got a chance here. So
yeah. It's going to be a slot fest, but it'll be it'll be good.
I'm willing to stake my reputation on the Texans.
I thought we'd get a better game in the Monday night.
Some physical football for Monday night playoff game. All right. It's going to be an exciting weekend, gents. However, not all fan bases are partaking equally in that excitement. There were several teams who came into the season with high expectations and in some cases looked like playoff teams midway through the campaign only to disappoint or flame out down the stretch. I want to touch briefly on those teams that came up just short of the playoffs and discuss what went wrong for them. And let's start with the team that we've been discussing already, the one that was a 44-yard field goal away from winning the AFC North and going to the playoffs, but instead is now on the outside looking in for the first time since 2021. Wilk, what went wrong for the Baltimore Ravens this year?
Yeah, so I actually wrote a piece heading into Week 18 about kind of making the case why I thought the entire AFC field should be hoping that the Ravens did not beat the Steelers. And the idea was that if there was going to be some sort of sleeping giant in this conference who could shake up a playoff picture that really doesn't have a clear top dog, as we've been talking about this whole season, I thought it would be the Ravens. And when the offense started clicking in the second half, they made a bunch of big plays. You had that one like really MVP type play from Lamar where he escaped the sack and threw the ball down the field.
Reminded me of the helmet catch a little.
Yeah, so in that moment, I was like, I'm going to be right.
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome. And sure enough, obviously, they found a way to lose again, as they've been doing all season. And now they head into the offseason facing a bunch of questions. And, they're right up there with the Chiefs as one of the most disappointing teams in the entire league this year. On one hand, I do still believe that they were a little closer than people might give them credit for. Lamar Jackson, after battling injuries all through the season, clearly he was beat up. This past game, he started to look a lot more like himself, like he did last year, and like he did early this season before he went down with that hamstring injury in Kansas City. And then Derrick Henry, obviously the run game really started going down the stretch. We talked about Green Bay earlier. This was another example of that, where just a reminder that this dude is timeless, and especially in the cold weather, like, you do not want to deal with this. The only problem, like, the defense, like, it's just so reliant on one player. Like, we talk all the time about Kyle Hamilton, how they solve all their issues. Last year they had an issue on the back end, so they moved him to deep safety. It fixed everything. This year they had issues around the line of scrimmage. They moved him back around the line of scrimmage. It fixed everything. They are so reliant on one player, a safety. They have far too many issues elsewhere. This team desperately needs to find a way to once and for all solve their pass rush issues. Obviously they added Mike Green in the second round last year. I think they hope that his development takes off in year 2, but I think they need another big addition on that front, whether it's a veteran trade or another first-round pick. But I think more broadly, when I'm looking at this team in the offseason, I think it's fair to question whether it might be finally time for a new voice at the top. And look, I'm patient with coaches for the most part, and I fully admit that if the Ravens were to move on from John Harbaugh, he would immediately be scooped up by another team because he has an incredible track record. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to just stick with what you've got. I mean, we saw the Eagles do it however many years ago, right? Like, Andy Reid had a lot of success in Philly, but eventually it was time for new leadership at the top. And after this latest disappointment, this time coming before the playoffs, not in the playoffs where they're used to having letdowns, I do wonder if there's a case to be made that they could benefit from a bit of a shakeup there for the first time in 18 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Insert Wolverine meme of, like, Seahawks fans looking at Mike McDonald right now.
Like,
just
longingly.
I mean, that is the exact case that T has been making, like, from back last year, where he's like, I would fire this guy I would fire the head coach to keep the coordinator. It's like, the Ravens would probably love to have Mike McDonald right now.
Yeah.
I think that this team, as good as they've been over the last 4 or 5 year stretch, they have been playing on the margins a lot defensively. Like,
for sure,
you look at like a Justin Houston, a Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Van Noy. Like, there have been these veteran additions that all of a sudden have had like Van Noy had a career year sack wise, like 1-2 years ago, that they've added and then saved the pass rush. Because I swear, even last year before the season, I said to you guys, I'm like, I don't know if this team can be as good because I don't like their pass rush. Eventually, it's not going to be schemed up so well. And this year is where it all fell off. Like, their pass rush was awful. Their secondary really paid for it. And then again, I don't want to make too many excuses for Lamar's performance this year, but I do think you start to look at the offensive pieces outside of Derrick Henry and you go, well, Zay Flowers is not a number 1. Ideally, that'd be a perfect number 2 guy. He just hasn't been super reliable this year when it comes to drops, especially.
He'd be an elite number 2.
Yeah, and then Mark Andrews, I mean, we're in the latter stages of the career. Like, he hasn't.
They extended him for
player.
some reason, though. That was weird.
Yeah,
and that seems like they're getting rid of Isaiah Likely, which is really
would not be
surprising.
I would expect to not be the John Harbaugh way. I'd expect him to move on from a player that he think is tailing off in his career instead of extending. But ultimately, I thought you were going to go into this more, the article. Like, I don't think this team was a sleeping giant at all. I think they just showed us who they were all season long, and I don't think it would have ever shown up in the postseason if they were to have made it.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of, for me, the same thing where you'll look at every show heading into this weekend, and there will be like 60% of experts will take the Bills to win the Super Bowl. And they'll be like, well, Josh Allen.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm taking the quarterback. And like, that's kind of my case here too, right? Where like, I think the Ravens offense will bounce back probably no matter who they add at receiver because they have Lamar Jackson. He's like pretty much right there with Josh Allen, right? So I think the offense will be fine. It's just, for me, a matter of really getting Kyle Hamilton some help on defense and not having the entire thing hinge on him. Because for me, if he was available in the playoffs, because he got hurt in that game, then that probably changed that game too, right? If he had been available in the playoffs and like you get this healthier version of Lamar that I think we saw in that game, they could have made some noise in the AFC. But yeah, ultimately I was proven wrong, and it took like a matter of like 3 days for that article to look stupid. So,
but it's safe to say that you feel that the criticism that was heaped on Lamar over the course of the season was excessive, if not entirely misplaced.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this goes back to like the time he was drafted, right? There's always been like some level of disbelief in his ability as a quarterback. Like you probably still to this day have people calling him a running back, which like you just don't watch the games if you think that. Like he's one of the best pocket passers in the entire league. Like
I do think there's big questions about his durability moving forward.
It's a tough style of play to sustain, right?
You look at Cam Newton, right? Remember how like Cam Newton at his peak was absolutely incredible, and his
He was never as good as peak Lamar.
Passing wise, for sure.
Overall.
Anyways,
go on.
He was still really good, but I agree. He wasn't as good as Lamar for sure. But his fall off happened so quickly and it was so steep because just like running backs, when you're getting hit that often, by the time 30 hits, it can get really tough.
Well, it's a bit of a different feel because one of his best skills as a runner is avoiding contact. Like Cam would just run guys over, and that's what
he's.
ended up.
I mean, the size of him, right?
Of course you would.
Like,
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But that ended up like hurting his shoulder, I think, to some extent. So Lamar's different, and I think his game will age well. I'm not going to be surprised if there's like weird conversations in the offseason about like, are they going to extend him? Like, absolutely, they should extend him, but I don't know. Teams do these things sometimes, especially when you run into this kind of disappointment.
Yeah, losses and repeatedly flaming out. I mean, it inspires some sometimes questionable decision making. All right. Let us now look at a team that looked like it was going to cruise to a 5th straight division title when they hit their Week 9 bye, only to go 2-7 over their final 9 games, squandered their division, missed the playoffs by virtue of a tiebreaker.
What happened?
Indeed. What went wrong for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year?
You guys remember when this team was 5-1 and they beat the Seahawks, 49ers, and Texans?
Baker Mayfield was like the unquestioned MVP of the NFL.
Yeah.
But we did say he can't keep getting away with this.
Todd Bowles is single-handedly. I've watched my opinion. I think I've shared this on the show before of the preference of hire the offensive head coach because you can never lose him because he's your head coach. You're not going to lose him to a promotion from offensive coordinator to head coach elsewhere. And I didn't really share that belief. And now I think I'm completely off the wagon and have to believe because I think this is the case of Todd Bowles. Eventually, you're playing with fire where you're changing the offensive coordinator year after year. These guys have success, they leave, and you've got to replace them. And sometimes it can go the wrong direction. And for Bowles
Look at Canales too.
And for Bowles too. The thing is,
it's like the third time you've wedged in some Panthers propaganda.
Enough of your Panthers propaganda.
For Bowles too, it's like the pass defense has gotten worse every year since he's become the head coach. Every single season they've gotten worse. There's of the 4 seasons, there's 128 teams, let's say, 32 teams, 4 years. He's gone from being right around 38th, I think, his first year, all the way out to last year they were 121st of 128 teams last 4 years in pass defense. This year they were right around 100th. And this is a team that honestly has no excuses for the way the roster is built in this particular division to be missing the postseason and the way things have fallen off. I think we found out that we saw Baker Mayfield's peak as a player, which I think is still capable of winning the Super Bowl, but I think it's more of a Sam Darnold or I'm not going to say Daniel Jones, I won't go there, but a Sam Darnold type of quarterback as opposed to a game-changing
Josh Allen,
Jackson,
of
Justin Herbert,
course.
Joe Burrow type of player.
Bryce
So
Young.
We're kicking you off this show.
keeping Todd Bowles in the building, I think is maybe a little bit questionable. It might be time to move on from that regime when it goes back all the way back to Bruce Arians. But it seems like they're just going to roll forward into next year. I don't completely dislike Bowles as a manager of the operation, but
he's not a good in-game tactician. He's really not.
Really poor.
So.
Well, I have my team's the Lions, and I have a kind of a connecting tissue between all of these things that we're talking about because we're going to do a postmortem on the Lions as well. These are teams that early in the decade, the Bucks, the Ravens, and the Lions were all very successful teams, and this is a thing about the NFL. It's really hard to be good for a long time. What happens is you have high draft picks, you draft players high, you develop them, and then they eventually start asking for more contracts, and you start to notice where the Ravens have all these holes on defense that they're not able to fill because they're also drafting in the back half of the draft. You talk about the Buccaneers and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and some of these great players that they have on defense, Levante David, Antoine Winfield, all these guys start to get older, and it's so much harder to fill these things. And the exact same thing happened with the Lions, where it's like you have all of these great guys, and they get older. It becomes really hard to fill those holes on defense. And to another point of how hard it is to be successful over a long time, we've talked about him. Mike McDonald with the Ravens. Liam Cohen with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Ben Johnson with the Detroit Lions. You start getting poached.
Yeah.
Not only do they take your coaches, those coaches go then and take your players because they're comfortable with them and they've learned them in the offense. And I think one of the big postmortems that we see with all three of these teams is just really hard in the NFL to stay successful for a long time. And we think we're starting to see the changing of the guard.
Yeah, 100%. I think in my young football watching life, I think this is the year where I've realized the most about how important offensive play calling can be to success.
And just
Because I
coaching
think-
generally.
Yeah.
I think it's something that maybe you don't appreciate coming up. You just look at the personnel on the field, but man, does it ever make a huge difference.
It's a whole difference. Which, speaking of the Lions, one thing they got to do, they got to hire an offensive coordinator and they got to get John Morton out of the building. And there are some really interesting options out there, like especially for Dan Campbell, who's a very adaptable head coach. He can bring in some other guy and let him do whatever he needs to do done. You look at like Mike Kafka, who probably won't be retained by the Giants, Mike McDaniel, who I think could instantly put their running game back into a really, really effective unit. I would love to hire Mike McDaniel as an offensive coordinator if I was out there in the NFL right now.
If he's let go.
Yeah.
I guess he's not let
Yeah,
go.
he hasn't been fired. He might be, but it seems like he's going to stay.
Yeah, he might stay.
I was just assuming Mike McDaniel was fired, but I guess he's just not been fired yet. Or Brian Dable, obviously, I think would be another option.
Do we really think, though, that now that we're on Detroit, do we really think that this is about their offense, though?
That's the thing. They went
I
from the
don't think it
7th
is.
best defense in the NFL to the 22nd best while remaining still a top 5 offense. I'm more concerned about the state of the defense.
Well, I think part of it is in the past, they were able to hide their defense a little bit by running the ball so effectively.
Yep.
And you look at the way that David Montgomery was just not used this year. And as good as Jahmyr Gibbs is, he's a home run hitter. They didn't have that ball control element to their offense that they've had in the past. And I think missing that is one of the reasons why they're in the spot that they're in.
Yeah, I think part of it was losing Ben Johnson. Part of it was also the losses on the offensive
on the
line,
line.
not having Frank Ragnow. So if they can make a change of play color, or at least make adjustments to what they're doing heading into next season and just beef up the offensive line a little bit, I think that Taylor Decker might be considering retirement too.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that could
right.
hurt it as well. But they have to get better off in the offensive line because that's the foundation for everything they had been doing
Yeah.
over the previous 3 years, right?
I just think that defense, like they had a lot of injuries in the secondary too. I just think that the
Yeah.
defense is a bigger concern. Like I think offensively,
Yeah.
even with Dan Campbell, I still think they
Yeah.
can figure things out there. I think it's defense that's
Yeah.
going to keep them from
100%.
accomplishing the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
I think Mike McDaniel's actually staying in Miami. That's crazy.
And I'll also say about the Lions, they finished 9-8 while playing in the toughest division, the second toughest division.
They
in
looked
the
really
NFL.
good. They looked really good at times.
Yeah, there were moments where you're like, oh, this
100%.
team can win the Super Bowl, and other
Yeah.
moments where, okay, maybe they're not going to make the playoffs. But that's, I think, a testament to how tough their division is as well.
Yeah.
I would agree.
All right. Pretty painless for the postmortems, I would say. However, let's talk coaches, because with the end of the regular season comes swift coaching changes. We saw multiple head coaches lose their jobs in the hours following their team's Week 18 game or on Black Monday. Let's talk about them. First up, the Raiders have fired Pete Carroll after going 3-14 in their first season under the 74-year-old former Super Bowl champion. Wilk, what do you make of that call?
Yeah, I mean, look, I believe I said it earlier this season when we were talking about maybe at the halfway point teams that were spectacular failures or coaches that weren't quite working out. And I said that I understood why they hired Pete Carroll last offseason. I think a lot of people did, right? Like, this is an organization who has been through a lot for a long time, years or decades. I could tell you firsthand. And I think more than anything else, they just needed some semblance of stability. And as a proven program builder who is one of the few guys ever who has won a national title in college, won a Super Bowl, I think it made sense that you would turn to a veteran guy like Pete Carroll, even if he's older and it's only going to be like a short-term arrangement, just to kind of
Give Chip Kelly the job.
just set this thing up for success moving forward.
Yeah.
So lay some sort of foundation and change the culture. Obviously, that did not work, and to your point, I don't think that was a Pete Carroll thing. Actually, I think that was Tom Brady arranging that, and Tom Brady, forcing Chip Kelly onto Pete Carroll's staff obviously didn't work. But I just can't get past the fact that Pete Carroll hired his own son to coach the offensive line which ended up being one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. And
You never,
Nepo
you
baby
never
hire
want to see
backfired?
that.
yes, and
No.
look,
Anytime it's like, defensive coordinator Steve Belichick, defensive line coach Chris Belichick, like
Yes.
it's
That
always
defense
a bad
is gonna be
sign.
not so good.
Steve Belichick. I like Steve Belichick.
Anyways, go on, Dan.
And look, I more than anything else, I think that this was doomed from the start because this was just an example of a clear disconnect between a veteran head coach who was set on doing nothing other than winning right now, taking over a team that clearly, having ended up where they did, was in a position where they desperately needed a full-scale rebuild. Like this did not work. And just watching him toward the end of the season continue to trot out veterans like Tyler Lockett and Stone Forsythe and Devin White and Jamal Adams, who are not going to be on this team next year, instead of developing players who actually might be, who were drafted this year, it never made any sense. It was not a good fit. Now, part of me thinks that there's a chance that this actually is a bit of an attractive job in the offseason because you have the number one
overall
pick,
pick.
you have over $100 million in cap space, you have probably the best facilities in the entire NFL. You have an ownership group now backed by some pretty deep-pocketed investors that will pay a lot of money for a new head coach, and you're in the state of Nevada, which does not have any state income tax. And I believe it was Mike Florio over the weekend who shared a rumor that Tom Brady is targeting or considering or wanting to go after Brian Flores as his head coach and bring in Brian Dable as the offensive coordinator, just dipping into the Patriots connections in that way. And personally, I would love that. But at the same time, this team is so far away.
Yeah.
And now that they have cycled through 4 different coaches since they moved to Las Vegas in 2020, which is more than the Steelers have had since the 1960s, I think that it would be totally fair if any top head coaching candidate just says thanks, but no
Yeah.
thanks.
I don't know. I don't think like you mentioned the first overall pick, but I don't think outside of that it's all that attractive, especially when you look at the rest of the division too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest I don't want to go to that division guy because I think that for the most part, coaches and really anyone involved in football is super competitive,
love
and they'd
the
be
challenge.
like, yeah, I love a
Yeah.
challenge, and they would do that. But I do see your point. I think that those factors are more than anything else. It's just the fact that this organization can't get out of its own way.
Yeah.
Has played in 2 playoff games since being in the Super Bowl at the end of the 2002 season and won none of them. It's been a disaster. So they have to find a way to get it right, and maybe Tom Brady gets better in his second year as the de facto shot caller there in the same way that he did as
You are right,
in his second
yeah.
year as the
Broadcaster.
broadcaster.
Broadcaster's been better, yeah.
And his
I don't
second
know.
year as a professional quarterback.
That's true.
People
I mean,
forget it was his
yeah,
second
we'll see.
season.
True.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know that you could actually have any faith in this working until you see it with your own eyes.
Yeah, that's so fair.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, gents, the Atlanta Falcons, they fired Raheem Morris after a second straight 8-9 season, although hilariously, the Falcons finished with the exact same record as the team that won the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers. T, what do you make of that firing?
I'm going to be much shorter than Dan because this is my favorite team. But I do think you can get the temperature check on whether or not it was a great idea to fire your head coach as to whether or not they get a job immediately following their firing. And I think Raheem Morris is one of those guys. Defensively, the Falcons did take a step forward this year. I wholeheartedly believe that. I know, we are very critical of the trade in the draft to move up and give up a first-round pick heading into this year. Obviously, that does not look good considering they did not make the postseason, but I do think James Pierce had an excellent year. I believe he led rookies in sacks this season, too. So I think defensively, they were very good. I get making the decision to move on because you just can't have these last 2 seasons with the way this roster is constructed and how confident you felt about it and how competitive the NFC South is. So I get moving on. I think Raheem Morris is going to find a job immediately.
Yeah.
But I do think this
As
will
a head coach?
No, as a
Oh,
coordinator. as a
yeah,
coordinator.
I think that he's going to go back to the Rams as a defensive coordinator when Chris Shilou leaves for a head
Shilou
coaching
leaves.
job. I think that's
yeah.
that's the perfect fit.
On that point, I do think the Falcons will probably stay away from the McVay tree. I know they obviously went to the defensive side, not really as much of the McVay tree, but I think that will be something they look to avoid. I know they've had interest in a few guys already offensively. I know Kafka's a guy they're targeting to interview. Do they want to look at a Joe Brady, a Mike McCarthy? I think they'll lean offense because they got to see what they have in
you
Michael
got
Penix.
You got to maximize
and
those guys
maximize
have
what
on
you can do.
offense,
So, but yeah,
Just every time I look at Drake London and Bijan Robinson,
There's
I'm
so
just
much
like,
talent.
that somebody can figure this
somebody's
out.
got to be excited to work with Bijan. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Kafka being probably one of them.
My question is that if they bring in a new head coach and Michael Penix Jr. continues to underwhelm, after next season, are they considering a change at quarterback, or is it still too small of a sample?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we got to see if he's ready for the start of next season anyway, right? But yeah, if he doesn't look like the guy next season, you have to. Right?
Yeah,
Well, now
Falcons
once
just
you
announced that
fire
they,
the GM and the head coach, the let's wait for the quarterback thing.
Yeah,
goes
all
up.
bets
They
are
don't
off.
care.
It
They don't
wasn't
care
his
anymore.
guy,
They
right?
didn't. They don't undraft him, so it doesn't matter.
The
Totally.
Falcons did announce today that they did restructure Kirk Cousins' contract, opening them up to be able to let him go in the middle of March.
Get ready to learn New York Jets, buddy.
Oh, boy. Finally, Cleveland Browns. They fired two-time Coach of the Year Kevin Stefanski following a second straight season with double-digit losses. Zach, your take on that call?
I feel like we could do like a whole hour on just like the Stefanski run and everything that happened there.
Yeah.
I mean, when he first came in and made the playoffs with Baker Mayfield, it's hard to even remember what the Browns felt like at that time, but it was like straight coming out of the oasis. They're lost in the desert for so long. Everything feels so great. Kevin Stefanski is looked at as like the future mastermind to this like great thing. And honestly, even building up, then it's like, they make this Deshaun Watson trade and all the terrible stuff aside, you're like, wow, this is going to be a perennial playoff team competing up there with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then that absolutely blows up and ultimately leads to the end of Kevin Stefanski's thing. There's simply nothing. You could have been the best coach in the world. There's nothing you're going to do when you have this albatross contract, making they have the least cap space of any team in the league. And no players to show for it?
Zach, they're $100 million over the cap without a starting left tackle, left guard, right guard, and center.
And so there's just nothing. There's nothing you could do as a head coach. You simply have no ability to make that any good. So I think the question here a little bit is like, why did they keep Andrew Berry but get rid of Kevin Stefanski? Because you would figure that Andrew Berry had more of a say in making the Deshaun Watson move, so you would lean towards keeping Stefanski in that situation. But I think Browns ownership is very confused about everything that's going on. So that instantly becomes the worst head coach opening you can imagine.
By a landslide.
By a landslide.
You got Shadur Sanders at quarterback. They've got
they've got the 8th or 9th overall pick.
Cap space.
You can't draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad. And on the flip side, Kevin Stefanski instantly becomes one of the most coveted head coaches, I think, to fill one of the other spots that's out there.
Absolutely.
Like you said, two-time head coach. He's an offensive-minded guy. So when you make a choice as a franchise that instantly makes you the worst option and the person you got rid of the best option, usually not a good
I
sign.
think Stefanski should be happy that he got fired.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get paid out the rest of your contract, and then you get to go get a job with a real organization. I mean, I've said this so many times throughout the season when it seemed likely that it was heading in this direction, where he's been the coach of the year twice.
Yeah.
He won 11 games twice with the Browns. The second year, I think it was 2023, 2022, one of those years, they had 5 different starting quarterbacks.
Joe Flacco finished there, yeah.
Joe Flacco finished after Deshaun Watson got hurt. I think DTR started one of those games.
Yep.
2 other guys that I already forget
Tim
because
Couch.
they started 5 of them. It just, to me, this guy has always been a good coach, and like you can see why he's a respected offensive mind. So I think that he's going to immediately get a head coaching job somewhere else, maybe another place that has a young quarterback in place that he can actually.
Tell me you can't
build
picture him
something around.
in Giants colors.
I do think we did this last year where we just assumed all these guys that were let go are going to immediately find a job. Like, Mike Vrabel sat the year. I think there's a chance Stefanski sits the year too.
Sure, yeah, I could see that too. But I think that there will at least be the market for him to go get a job right now if he wants one.
All 32 teams are like, let's get him as the OC. It's like, yeah, you and every other team in the league wants him. He's not going to be your OC. I'll promise you that.
He will be a head coach.
I would trade Aaron Glenn for Kevin Stefanski in the quickest
I
term
bet you
could
would.
ever imagine.
I bet you would. All right, gentlemen, great stuff. We've teed up the wild card matchups. We've delivered the postmortems. There's only one thing left to do: Super Bowl predictions. Wilk, who's winning Super Bowl 60?
I'm going to take the best team in the NFC to beat who I think, right now at least, is the best team in the AFC. That is the Seahawks over the Jaguars.
Wow. Jags are the best team in the AFC, huh?
Right now, I think. I mean, I obviously wouldn't have said that a month and a half ago, but they have been lately, and I don't know, going on a run is all about getting hot. So there are a number of teams that could come out of the AFC. Obviously, we've been talking about this for weeks now, but I think they beat the Bills this week, and they're just so balanced. They're good at everything, and the coaching job that Liam Cohen has done is incredible. So this could just be like a Super Bowl matchup of the 2 top finishers for Coach of the Year.
Fair enough. T, who's winning the Super Bowl?
Well, for the record, the Chargers and the Jaguars are going to play in the AFC Championship game. And
Respect the exercise.
Wow.
But that ultimately means the Jags do what they did to the Chargers early in the year. So I'm going the Rams over the Jaguars. Before
right.
the season,
They
I did have
throttled
Rams.
them. I forgot about that
being
game.
like 35-6. The Rams, I had them in the preseason, but I had them playing the Bills. And before the show, I debated putting the Bills back in there, but I have the Jags winning when they play. So I can't really put the Bills in the Super Bowl.
You and everybody else. Zachy, who's winning the Super Bowl?
I have the two best defenses in the NFL. Defense wins championships. I have the Seattle Seahawks defeating the Houston Texans in the Super Bowl. The performance that the Seahawks defense gave against the 49ers, obviously, like maybe it's like a recency bias or whatever, but that just fired me right up. And I think I'm also working on a theory that Mike McDonald is the best coach in the NFL. I'm not saying that that's my opinion. I'm working on a theory that he's got a little Bill Belichick to him. Just in terms of how he looks at the game and how he schemes things and how he's able to take things really week by week and approach every single team differently, which I really think is a huge skill. So I have the Seahawks beating the Texans. CJ Stroud, I think, is getting a lot better. Defense is great.
And who does Jonah have?
Okay, so we have two guys who predicted the Seahawks to win, and now we have two guys who predict the Rams to win the Super Bowl. I have them beating New England. I just think that's a dream matchup for the Patriots in the wild card round. And the AFC generally is a little bit soft. And the Rams strike me as just the most complete team in the NFL. We've talked about it ad nauseum. I guess this will be a rematch of Super Bowl 53.
There's been two.
That's true. Two rematches.
Yeah,
right?
McVay and Belichick, and then the greatest show on turf versus Tom Brady.
That's right, except this time, the Rams are going to beat the Patriots, and hopefully there will be a little bit more offense than there was in Super Bowl 53 when it was a 13-3 snoozer. And Matty Stafford further cements his Hall of Fame legacy, his Hall of Fame case, I should say. I think we all cemented our Hall of Fame cases today, though.
Hell yeah.
That goes without saying, because that'll do it for today's episode of No Timeouts. Once again, that's Zak McDonald, that's Dan Wilkins, that's Tyler MacKillop. My name's Jonah Birenbaum. We'll see you next time.